Good morning. I am so excited that we are back with you once again. I want to welcome my wonderful co-host to the scene this morning, Gotham Matilde. I'm Francois. Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's pick up where we left off last time. So it was our first show.
Yes.
How did you all feel about the show?
I felt great. I thought it flowed really nicely. I mean, the topic was on spot, and we got great feedback from people that have taken the time to watch it. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch the show and giving us your feedback and ideas. Just really appreciate you doing that for us. It's really helped us now to kind of frame our show, so to speak.
Right. So last show, we talked about the silence of women. And we came up with a lot of different issues around domestic violence and sexual abuse, and even women being called bitchy. And what does it look like when they're in a work environment and being assertive? And so there was a little clip that you had, a picture.
It was a cute little clip of a little girl and a little boy. And I can't remember exactly what it said, but it said, "I'm not bossy, I have skills, leadership skills." And she has like this stick pointing out to this little boy. It's just the cutest little thing I've seen.
It is. And I think it, really demonstrates that sometimes there's confusion between leadership skills and between, this ideal of women being assertive, and that's sometimes viewed as aggressive. Yeah. So I thought the show was wonderful. I think it was great to be able to introduce womanars and the great work that we all are trying to do to empower women. And so with that said, let's go on and kick off talking about our topic today. So our topic today is colorism. What is that?
Ha ha ha. Well, Till, do you want to go? Or shall I?
Put me on the spot.
No. Okay. So colorism, to me, it's discrimination or prejudice against skin color within a racial or ethnic group. But I do want to point this out to you ladies, and I want to share this with our viewers. I got an email last night through Facebook from a young lady, and it's a children's rhyme, and it kind of covers colorism in a nutshell. Can I share this with you all?
Yeah.
So the rhyme goes like this, if I remember correctly: if you're brown, don't come around. If you're black, stay back. If you're yellow, you might be mellow. If you're white, you're all right.
I remember hearing that as a kid.
That I was really disturbed after reading that.
I think for me, it's interesting to think about this term, because I initially thought it was something that was only in the African American community, because I remember growing up in Louisiana, and the issues of people being fair complected and dark complected, you always saw favoritism that happened. Right. But then when I went to India, it was mind-blowing to me to see that it wasn't just something that African Americans struggle with. Right. This is all over the world.
It's global.
And I saw people that were Latinas who were dealing with the same issue, especially when I would look at some of the Spanish speaking stations, and it's like you would see Celia Cruz at that time, but there was nobody else who seemed to be brown, or dark complected. And so I realized this is a phenomenon that all of us as women of color struggle with.
I agree.
Right.
Totally
and knowing
agree.
the differences also between colorism and racism.
Yes.
Because you can have colorism even outside your own ethnicity.
Right.
Where racism is simply against a certain race, a certain group. So I think that's a distinction that we should make about the topic that we're discussing as well. So, but do we want to show that clip?
I would love to introduce the clip. We've got a wonderful clip from Lupita talking about skin color and complexion.
I received a letter from a girl, and I'd like to share just a small part of it with you. Dear Lupita, it reads, "I think you're really lucky to be this black, but yet this successful in Hollywood overnight. I was just about to buy Dentsure's Whitenicious cream to lighten my skin when you appeared on the world map and saved me."
Wow. Your thoughts?
I did not, when I first heard her acceptance speech, because that was the Black Essence Awards, correct? That she was accepting an award. I had no idea that it was so prevalent, first and foremost. Second of all, I didn't know about these lightening creams, and how ridiculous and how they're being used to limit women and men, you know, if men are using the products as well, but really limiting individuals as far as what is considered attractive or beautiful, you know, and those are really limiting beliefs that are within our own cultures. I mean, we have examples of those limiting beliefs in front of us.
So we've got Fair and Lovely, which is produced in the country of India, and that's for women. And then we have Fair and Lovely, which is for the men.
Wow.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I can't remember where I read this, but I came across this number. I don't know how accurate it is, but the global market for skin lightening creams is projected to reach $19.8 billion by the end of 2018.
Wow.
I mean, that is an outrageous number. And frankly, it kind of shows where our priorities are, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I brought one that is ambi, but there are various different creams that I know African Americans use, and typically it's to remove spots, but people will use them for their entire face to lighten their skin complexion. I think the issue for me was when I was in India, I remember seeing these huge billboards, you know, of these white stars from Britain. And I think part of it is that as a society, I think what we've said is a certain way of beauty is more appealing than another beauty. And so I think people want to fit in. And I don't know if it's necessarily this idea of, you know, I'm trying to be something else. I think, and for some that may be it, but I think the real issue is, why do we have a society that doesn't embrace difference and the kind of fitting in that we all should want everybody to have? And I think that these creams are people's way of saying, I want to fit and be beautiful. And so I think that that's really the bigger issue of, why do we have a society that says one way of looking is better than the other?
And it's passed down from generation to generation. You know, if my grandmother felt it, of course she's going to say, you know what, you need to be a little bit more fair, you need to stay out of the sun. And I remember going to India anytime, and there's, what, you're a little bit darker this time. You're a little bit darker. I mean, this is the color of my skin. You know, accept it. This is who I am.
I mean, it
know?
takes me 15 minutes to tan. I can go outside and come back in and be a shade darker.
And I think that was one of the best compliments I received one year. I was coming out of the gym, and this girl comes up to me. She's like, where do you get your tan? And I'm like, man, guess I better be proud of my skin, you know, because this is natural for me.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, because I think it naturally. Yeah. You know, your upbringing within our own families, you know, tends to kind of dictate the our mentality. Right. You know, I'm the darkest of my siblings. You know, my brother and I are the darkest of my siblings. So, and being singled out as the darkest. You know, so there was always that. Like you felt like you stood out, you know, and not for a good reason either. So it was looked down upon, or that's the perception that I received. Not that anybody ever said that, but you know, to be singled out as the dark one was a little bit of a hamper on your self-esteem, you know, when you're growing up. And then, so I think parents have a lot to do with that.
But I think it's because of what to your points, what parents go through. My mother, you know, when she was younger, was really fair complected and had freckles, and so people picked on her. And I remember as a kid tanning, and my mother would purposely take us outside and use baby oil. I was telling you all about that. And would put us, you know, in baby oil, which I don't think she realized was burning the mess out of us. But it was like, okay, Mom, I guess we'll go out here and sizzle. You know, and I remember this idea of, for her, it was being lighter complected meant something totally different. She saw lighter complected people being mean-spirited and feeling that they were better. And so she didn't want to raise children who did that. My father was very dark-skinned. And so she had this very, I guess, different, you know, opposing view of it because of how she was made to feel that there was something wrong in that. And so I think parents, you know, typically do it because of what they've been taught. and the world that they live in. I think also for me, growing up in Louisiana was very different. You know, Louisiana has this history around color where you had, you know, people classified as if they were octoroons, quadroons, mestizos, and so it's based on the amount of African blood that they had. And so they would have these quadroon balls years, you know, after slavery and during slavery, where these very fair complected women were placed up on platforms for white men to choose. And the whole purpose of that was to be able to have children who were going to be lighter complected and pass. And so, you know, in our community, it's always been this issue of, if I can just fit in at any means, I want to be able to fit. And so, you know, if I can't live next door to you or I have the same economic opportunities, then skin color was really a way that people wanted to be able to fit.
Yeah, I was reading some research on it. I can't remember what national organization put out these statistics, but it was amazing to me how the perception of a lighter-skinned African American is seen by not only whites, but within their own race, as far as the education level and the socioeconomic level are seen as much 40% higher than somebody being darker skinned. And that to me was just amazing. I mean, because the perception is the same within the African American community as it is outside of the African American community. And that was just one study. I'm sure the studies are the same in Latino communities and, you know, Indian communities as well.
Absolutely. You know, I was talking about this earlier, but, you know, just like the avenues here in America, you know, the dating and like Match.com and eHarmony, you know, we have very similar avenues from India. So there's a couple of matrimonial and dating websites where the color of your skin is actually an option. It's a drop box.
Really?
So your options are dark, fair, or wheatish. So that's actually an option. What am I looking for? Well, I'm looking for a dark, wheatish, or fair person. And that's highly seen in India. The darker you are, the less successful you're going to be, or the less likely you're going to find a suitable match to marry you.
Wow.
And it's really difficult to comprehend, you know?
So my question is, how does that impact, especially young girls who are growing up in this, and then you have these images coming from the West.
Right.
So not only are you getting the images in your home country, but then there's this bombarding of movies and things that are coming from the West. How does that affect the girls?
I'm sure it affects them. You know, they're torn. I mean, how am I supposed to be accepted? If I'm dark, I'm this. If I'm too light, then I'm this. Let's take Nina Davaluri. She was Miss America back in 2013. Well, she had to fight two battles. She wasn't accepted in India when she got the crown because she was way too dark. And then she wasn't accepted here in America because she's not American, but she is American. So you're fighting two battles here.
It's the same thing happening with the young lady who is Miss Japan.
Right.
Because she's biracial. And so people are saying, well, you're not Japanese, you know, because you don't look like you're Japanese. But then, you know, she has a Japanese mother and her experience in living there. And so just because of what she looks like, people are saying, well, you're half. Right. So you're not a part of us.
Oh.
Isn't that something?
It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah. I mean, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
Exactly.
You know?
Right.
It's like the identity. I can't even imagine the identity conflict that goes on within people like that. You know, and not being accepted anywhere.
Exactly.
You know, and so how do we start to get young girls to actually accept themselves? You know, I think Lupita did a wonderful job in that speech, the acceptance speech, and not only addressing the issues that, you know, of colorism, but also being a great example, you know, to young women that look up to her and that see her accepting herself and her beauty, you know, as she is, giving them permission to also see themselves in that same light.
I think we just need to continue raising awareness, you know, be your own kind of beauty.
Right. Well, and I think it's having these discussions. I mean, I think for me, it was enlightening to talk to you all, you know, about this topic and realize that it's not just happening in my own community, but how do we begin to let people see that this is a global issue? And how do we help people begin to mobilize and connect to others who have the same experiences? Lupita is a beautiful woman, and I think what it demonstrates is beauty comes in all colors. So how do we, you know, focus on, in our own communities embracing that so that we can help larger communities understand the value of diversity.
And I think you're right, it's as far as starting within our own communities, because I think a lot of times we don't address it within our own communities, and we point the finger at, whites or blacks, well, look at what they're doing. But in all honesty, it is happening within each ethnicity. It doesn't matter what color you are, and until we take responsibility for our own isms,
right?
Because we do it to each other.
Yeah, we do it to each other, and that's the worst form.
It is. I mean,
we have to control within our own community before we start blaming others. Well, they said this, they said this. Well, what are we saying within our own?
Right.
And why shouldn't say something that we're not saying ourselves?
Exactly.
Right. But it's something to watch, not only within our communities, but watching women do this to each other. That women will make judgments about women because of skin color, and not want to affiliate or have relationships with. You were talking about a study. There's this research out about social capital, because that's my thing.
I know, that's your thing.
That's my thing. And so,
doctor.
Oh, okay. So I'm thinking on the doctor's social capital. It's like you said, I'm like, ooh.
You know what PhD stands for, right? I won't say it on that. I won't. Why?
If they saw the behind the scenes of the conversation, that's a whole nother NR17 show. It's a whole nother show. And so now I'm lost.
Social capital.
Wait a minute. Okay, so the study talked about social capital in terms of Latina women and African American women with color. And it basically said that women who are lighter complected in both of those populations tend to marry people that have higher influence and higher status, that their incomes, like you were saying, are a whole lot higher. And so there's this research that's showing that skin color can be a form of social capital. It can really help you build relationships and networks. That's frightening. What are your thoughts around that? Have you seen it?
That's how it is in India. That's the whole thing. The lighter you are, the more successful you're going to be, or the more likely you're going to get married. But the darker you are, more inferior you are. And that is a very sad perception to have. And until your mindset changes, how can you change everybody else? Until your own mindset changes.
Yeah, and look at the media. The media
doesn't help.
Doesn't help any. I mean, darker, Hispanics are always service providers of some sort, or maids or lawn, personnel. And so the media plays right into the colorism.
Yeah, it does. It does. When you even look at celebrities, I think all of us can, think about celebrities in our own communities and begin to start looking at which celebrities typically are in, I think about music videos. And there was one rapper who came out last year and said dark-skinned women should not wear red lipstick because you're too dark to wear that. And it's like, wow.
Why do you have to use that word in front of that lipstick doesn't look good on you? Why do you have to say, well, dark-skinned girls don't look good with red lipstick?
There are people that are fair complected who don't look good in red lipstick, so I don't think it's the issue of color, but it was something to watch an African-American man say this about African-American women, and to me it showed how embedded this thinking is in all of our communities that, even when you look at music videos, you oftentimes see very fair complected women. You don't always see shades of brown that exists, and I think there's something to be said about media and music that perpetuates this idea of what is beauty for young women, and how does that even translate into the way that they, look at themselves or using this stuff so that they do fit in. Media plays a role.
It really does. I dated a guy for a little bit. He pursued me off of one of these online dating websites, and he saw my pictures and everything, and he was okay with it. We went out on a couple of dates, and then out of the blue, he calls me and he tells me, well, I can't see you anymore. And I asked him, I thought everything was going well. He said, well, my mom may not accept you. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? Well, you're darker than I am, so.
Wow.
So, like you said, it's embedded it's ingrained in their heads, and it's passed down from one generation to another generation. And it's very sad.
Yeah. From a personal standpoint, how did that make you feel? And
it was traumatizing. It was traumatizing. It really was. And honestly, it took me a little while to get over that. And finally, I'm at a point where I can embrace my color.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if another woman went through that, how she would react?
Oh yeah.
Well, what's so crazy to me, you're so beautiful. I mean, that's the thing that I'm just like, really, that
Yeah.
would stop someone from wanting to pursue you, and you've already established that there could be a good relationship, and that says something about how beauty plays such a role in the perception of that. That's crazy.
Well, and that says a lot about the guy too.
Yeah. What's his name? So
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
put him on blast. Let's
Watch out.
Let's flash his picture.
Let me see if I have his picture. iPhone.
Let's show his picture and show everybody. We're gonna put him
The
on
posse
blast.
will come after him.
Well, beauty is defined so differently for so many people, and the color of your skin doesn't define who you are.
Yeah.
Doesn't say anything about your level of character, your integrity.
No.
And it really makes me sad that people still see that.
But
as an issue.
and it is. I mean, the sad thing is, Oprah just had 2 documentaries. That the first one where she looked at dark girls, and then in this last one she looked at light-skinned girls.
Right.
And it was something watching how people felt, like Amber Rose, who is a prime example of one of the folks she interviewed. And to watch, even in the African American community, people said, well, Amber Rose isn't black. I mean, she's very fair complected, but she, her family's from Cape Verde, I believe it is. And so she talked about how her family didn't accept her being married to Wiz Khalifa. They didn't come to the wedding because he was dark-skinned. And to hear other African Americans have this kind of barometer of, well, she's not black because look at what she looks like. And so it was something to see how Oprah used these documentaries to really create an opportunity for conversation in the community. And I think that has to happen more, is that people really have to begin to start having dialogues around this.
I agree with you. Until we start talking about it, nothing's going to get done.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I agree.
So then what do you think we can do we've kind of started this conversation, but what can we do in our own communities besides the dialogue? Are there other people or movements that you're aware of that we could really push people to around this topic?
Well, there's an actor, award-winning actress and director. Her name is Nandita Das, and this movement was actually started in 2009 by a group of 9 women. I think it's Women of Worth. Okay, and it gained a lot of steam in 2013. And Nandita Das, the award-winning actress and director, she became the face of Dark is Beautiful campaign. So basically, she speaks out against the biases and perceptions of dark skin. And she's really, really pushing against that in India, because India has an obsession with fair skin, and darker is inferior.
Wow.
So this whole movement has begun since 2013, and it gains steam every day.
I think we've got a clip too that I'd love for us to take a look at and discuss with each other.
Nobody across the class or caste or whatever is not. So it's such a mindset, it's such a stereotyping, and we keep perpetuating that, So it is a very dangerous trend, but everybody now in the industry knows that I keep fighting about it, and I'm very vocal about it. Every opportunity I get, I speak about it in the hope that, some women will gain that confidence. And a lot of women do come up to me and say, oh, we feel, I've seen parents telling their daughters, see, even she's dark, but she's fine with it, and things like that. It's so bizarre, the obsession in this country with fair skin, that it's really sad. That's all I could say.
Wow. Thoughts, ladies?
Mindset has to change.
Yeah.
It has to change. It must change. In order for us to move forward and accept this multicultural society, our mindset must change.
Yeah, and it's organizations like that and any other ones. I personally don't know of any for the Latin American community, so if our audience knows of any, please put them on our YouTube channel and let other people know about them as well. But I think that having, directing people to websites or organizations that are already doing, there's a website that I was actually reading called Healing Colorism, I believe, .com, and so they have great information there. And other resources that people can tap into, and they're going, around speaking about these things as well. So I think just tapping into those organizations that are already doing the work and doing the work ourselves.
You have to.
Taking a really honest look at our own life, and how we view people, And are we guilty of colorism ourselves at times, you know, with the people that we do business with or that we socialize with?
Right.
Are we more accepting of one set of people versus others? And I think it really has to start there too.
Right.
I agree. It made me think about, you know, when they had the case of Brown versus Board in the 50s, and they had the black children, they would have a white doll and a black doll, and they would ask the children to pick which was better. And all the children picked the white doll because that's what they wanted to look like, and they felt that was better. And they've done that study, even recent, and it says something that we are creating generations of young people who don't like themselves. And so that transfers into other parts of society. So if I don't like me and value who I am, how am I going to love and value you? And so, you know, I really believe that we have to begin to teach people how to love themselves, that you are created for a purpose and a plan, and that there is something so awesome about you. And when people are able to see that in themselves, then you're able to see the goodness and greatness that exists in others. And I think it is to both of your points about mindset. How do we get people to really change the way that they see themselves so that they can begin to embrace and love others?
Well, and love can't coexist with fear.
Right.
Right.
So if you love yourself, you know, you get rid of the fear that you may have felt by somebody else's perception of you.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
I agree. Wow.
Well, and it's go on.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but it's beginning to unpack those things. And I think it starts with looking at your childhood. How do you begin to unpack those first situations where you had to deal with color and you were made to feel bad about what you look like? How do you unpack that and begin to start analyzing the implications it has for who you are today?
I agree.
I think, you know, going to my childhood, and I think I shared this story with you guys, but I had a real problem with people calling me Mexican.
Yeah.
You know, up until maybe 2 years ago. And I didn't know where it came from. And so we dug deeper in therapy because it was something that was like, okay, I know I'm Mexican. I'm not a, you know, I'm a realist to a certain extent, but why is it really bothering me when people call me what I am? And so dug in therapy and come to find out it was an experience. In the second grade, Spanish was my first language. And so in the second grade, we were actually separated into bilingual and English only. So I was put in the English only class, and for some reason that created a mind shift for me in making me feel less than. You know, and once we really worked on that and honed in on that, and it wasn't a sense of colorism, but it goes back to that mindset. Right? And the belief system that you're less than, you know, when somebody calls you Mexican or because you couldn't speak Spanish anymore. But really working on that, and now I could care less what you call me. You know?
Call me.
But it was just identifying that one instance and remembering, oh yeah, I remember that and how hurtful it was.
Yes.
You know, and just identifying it, working through it, and saying, okay, I get it. Move on. You know, and being able to do so. But it's things like that, I'm sure, that can be applied to colorism as well. You know, experiences that we've had, and just to be able to say, okay, that happened. You know, but it doesn't define me. You know, it doesn't affect me. So
after my that whole ordeal with the guy, you know, I wrote down a little poem, and I want to share this with you all. It is just really simple. You know, brown is not my color. It is who I am. It is my pledge. It is my pride. It is my pleasure. It's the essence that flows through me. So with that said, you know, embrace who you are and be your own kind of beautiful.
Well, we are all beautiful women, and I want to thank you for, again, an amazing opportunity to share our thoughts with our audience. If they could only see the conversations that we have.
Scary.
Well, again, like I said, it's the NR17, and then it's this. And so I want people to understand that even in our individuality, that the collectiveness that we have shows that even in knowing our identities,
Right.
and we're strong in that you can still come together, have varying opinions.
Yeah.
It's amazing that we do have a lot of similarities in the way that we think.
We do.
But that shows that regardless of what people look like, I think when you really have an understanding of who you are, it makes it so much easier to connect to people that are different than you.
Agree.
And so thank you all for this journey and this opportunity to be able to share
Thank you.
today. So what do we have in store for S.I.T? What do you all see? I'd love to be able to close with, we've kind of gave people some action on this topic, but what do you see for S.I.T and our audience?
This might be generic, but I see something big. I can't describe what it is, but I feel something. It's earth-shaking. And what I want to get feedback from our viewers, and we would love to hear what they have to say, and we would love to hear topics that we can discuss. Topics that are important to them as well.
And even resources that you might be aware of that we're not necessarily aware of, but are great resources, are getting great results. Please tell us about them, or email us, or put them on our YouTube channel and let everybody know about them. That's critical, I think, in any organization, in any movement. And what we're trying to do here is actually just bring awareness and talk about issues that are normally just put under the rug, and not discussed. And until we start discussing these things, they're going to stay the same.
Right.
This is an open platform for everybody, without judgment.
Right.
Feel free.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And I think it's an opportunity to bring women together, to really look at how do we create movements, whether those are the individual movement for growth and change, or collectively, how do we come together and really solve for some of the social issues that we have. And so I think S.I.T is just an amazing idea. I want to just give shout outs to both of you. Because
high five, high five, high five.
Because I think it's an amazing idea, because we're not only doing social issues time, we're asking people to sit. And I think sometimes in our lives as women, we are so busy that we don't take the time to connect and sit
and just relax and talk.
Right.
Yeah. And talk.
And that's where the growing and the learning comes. So once again, ladies, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to sit with you today.
Well, we like sitting with you.
Thank you. We'll go sit some more.
So you know what I want to do?
What do you want to do?
So what I want to do is, to those of you that use these beauty creams, do me a favor. Trash it. Be your own kind of beautiful.
Yes.
Get rid of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.